Hey guys, welcome back to Fantasy Tips. My name is Julian, and today we're going to be talking about some guys that you should add for week 3 to win you your week 3 matchup and to help you out in the future as well. Before we get into it, guys, hit that like button, subscribe, hit that notification bell. I would really appreciate it. Without further ado, guys, let's talk about the schedule for this coming week. So this coming week is a pretty good schedule. There's a lot of games on every single day. So there's no real days where there's really only 1 or 2 games. It's not like that. The minimum amount of games on any given night is 5, so it's not too bad. You'll probably have players that play every single night. And on the nights where there are more games, you may not have to choose whether to start or sit certain players because you may not have a full lineup, which is great. Other than that, every single other team plays 3 or 4 games, so streaming pretty much any team could be fine this week. Just make sure you have room in your lineup on the days that you want to be streaming. Now, there are 4 teams, Edmonton, Toronto, San Jose, and Vegas, that only play 2 games next week. San Jose and Vegas because of canceled games. So if you're going to stream a player, don't stream a player from those teams. Now, the teams I recommend streaming from this week are Boston, Detroit, Philadelphia, and Tampa, due to them having at least 3 games on off nights each. Those off nights are Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday, so there's a very good chance that you will have room in your lineup if you stream someone from those teams. All right, guys, so first we're going to jump into some forwards under 50% owned that you can consider streaming. First on the list, guys, is Max Domi, Columbus Blue Jackets, 48% owned, and he hadn't looked very good at the beginning of the season, but he's starting to turn it around a little bit more. He's getting a little bit more power play time, and he's looking pretty good. Now, once Laine joins the team, he might look really good because Laine could be playing on his line. So if you have Domi, don't drop him. I know a lot of people have been dropping Max Domi, but it's worth holding him to see if he ends up playing with Patrik Laine. Even if he doesn't, see if he plays on that power play with Patrik Laine, because either of those things will make his numbers skyrocket. Next on the list, guys, is Zach Hyman, Toronto Maple Leafs, 45% owned, and he hasn't looked that amazing this season, but Thornton just recently got injured, so Zach Hyman is now playing on that top line with Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner. I really like that. Now, if you're looking just for a streamer, I wouldn't take Zach Hyman just because Toronto only plays 2 times this upcoming week. But if you're looking for someone to hold on to for at least a month, Zach Hyman is a decent option. Next is Roope Hintz, Dallas Stars, 44% owned, and Dallas is on absolute fire right now. They are scoring like crazy, and to me, I did not expect that at all because Dallas is supposed to be a more defensive team, but as long as they are scoring like the way they are, you absolutely should stream and grab Roope Hintz. Now, Roope Hintz missed the last couple of games, but in his first 2 games, the only 2 games he played, he got 5 points, which is pretty insane. So ride the high while it lasts. Once Dallas starts to calm down a bit, you might have to drop Roope Hintz, but you can stream him for a couple weeks probably. Next on the list, guys, he's been on my list since the beginning of the season, and that's Dylan Strome, Chicago Blackhawks, 42% owned. Add this guy. He's Chicago's real only centerman. He's centering that top power play, and Chicago's power play is very deadly. Go ahead and add Dylan Strome. Next on the list, guys, is Connor Garland, Arizona Coyotes, 41% owned, and he's playing really well on that top line alongside Nick Schmaltz, and he's playing on that top power play as well. That's quarterbacked by Jacob Chychrun, and he's looking pretty freaking good, and he's shooting the puck like crazy. He's a Brendan Gallagher type player. He likes to get into those dirty areas, and he likes to shoot the puck. Connor Garland's a very safe play because he shoots so much, and his goals totals should just keep going up, and he's already got 7 points in 8 games. To me, other than Jacob Chychrun, he's the #1 player you should own on Arizona right now. The next 2 guys on this list are Andrew Kopp and Paul Stastny, 40% and 20% owned. And Winnipeg is really scoring a lot right now, especially that second line of Stastny, Kopp, and Ehlers. As long as that line stays hot, both of these guys are great streaming options. I actually prefer Stastny as a streaming option just because he's actually playing on that top power play with the guys like Scheifele and Wheeler until Pierre-Luc Dubois obviously joins the team. Then Pierre-Luc Dubois will be on that top power play. Then Stastny is probably a drop for me unless he ends up being on that wing alongside Pierre-Luc Dubois instead of Kopp. So whoever ends up being on that second line wing, either Stastny or Kopp, is a guy that you could keep on your team. If Stastny gets dropped down to the third line or if Kopp gets dropped down to the third line, it's an easy drop. But until that time, great streamers. Next is Denis Gurianov. Dallas Stars, 39% owned, and like I said, Dallas is insanely hot right now. This guy's got 7 points in 4 games, and he's scoring a lot. His shooting percentage is insanely high, but as long as Dallas is on a tear, go ahead and keep him on your team. Next on the list, guys, is Bobby Ryan, Detroit Red Wings, 37% owned, and he seemed to have cooled off a little bit after that very, very hot start he had, but he's still getting that top power play time, and as long as he's getting that time, he has some fantasy value. Next on this list is probably one of the most surprising guys of this season so far. It's Joel Eriksson, Minnesota Wild, 37% owned. And he's got 7 points in 8 games, and he's currently playing alongside Johansson and Kaprizov. As long as he stays hot, he's a guy you can definitely stream. Next is Alex Killorn, Tampa Bay Lightning, 32% owned. He's currently being dropped in a lot of leagues, and I don't really know why. He's still on that top Tampa Bay power play with guys like Stamkos, Point, and Hedman. And Tampa Bay has a very, very favorable schedule next week. So it doesn't really make sense because they play Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, which are off nights. So you can definitely fit Killorn in your lineup. If you can grab him, get him in there. Even if it's just to stream this week, it's a pretty good idea. Next, guys, is James Van Riemsdyk, Philadelphia Flyers, 32% owned, and he's looking really good skating on that second line with Kevin Hayes and Jake Voracek. And right now, he's on that top power play, which is why he's doing so good. As long as he keeps that spot, he's worth a roster spot. Things might change once Sean Couturier returns to the lineup, but for now, go ahead and grab him. Next is Jonathan Drouin, Montreal Canadiens, 30% owned, and he's actually got 8 points through 7 games, so I actually don't understand why he's not more than 30% owned, because Montreal's been looking really, really great, and he's skating with Nick Suzuki and Josh Anderson, 2 guys who are also playing really well, not to mention he's also on that top power play. So as long as Montreal stays on their hot streak, Jonathan Drouin is a great guy to roster. Next, guys, is Pavel Buchnevich, New York Rangers, 28% owned, and he was just recently moved to that top power play with Panarin, Zibanejad, Fox, and D'Angelo. So his value just got a lot higher. If he's on your waiver wire, you can absolutely grab him. As long as that power play sticks, Buchnevich is in for a pretty good stretch. Next is another guy who's been on my list since the very beginning, Anthony Duclair, Florida Panthers, 27% owned, and he's got 5 points through 4 games, skating on the top line with Alex Barkov. That's all you need to know. Go ahead and add him to your team. Next is Jordan Kyrou, and he's been on an absolute tear, playing with Shen and Schwartz. As long as he is hot, you can keep him on your team, and he may be a guy that you can keep on your team the entire season. He is looking that good. Next is Vincent Trocheck, still on this list because he's still playing on that top power play. Next is Zach Parise, Minnesota Wild, 22% owned, and he's currently playing on that top power play as well as the first line alongside Fiala, although Fiala just got suspended for 3 games, so I don't know where Parise is going to end up landing, but he's got a spot on that top power play, so there's definitely some value there. Next is Jesse Puljujarvi, and he recently got placed on that top line with Connor McDavid, so there's definitely some value there, although he hasn't really done anything quite yet, but he's worth a speculative add. Next is Alexandre Texier, Columbus Blue Jackets, 19% owned. And he's got 6 points through 8 games right now. Not looking too bad. And he's another guy who is a possibility of playing with Patrick Laine, either on even strength or on the power play, or both. He's a guy you can scoop up now and hope for the best. Hope Laine ends up playing with him. And if he doesn't, you can drop him. But if he does, you're in for a real treat. Next is David Krejci, Boston Bruins, 17% owned. David Pastrnak is making his long-awaited return on Saturday, and David Krejci should still be on that top power play. He's in for a boost of power play points. Next is my must-add forward of the video, and that's Carter Verhaeghe, Florida Panthers, 11% owned, and he's been on an absolute tear alongside Duclair and Alexander Barkov. He has 6 points in 4 games, and 4 of those points are goals. He's looking really, really good, and I don't know what more he has to do for more people to add him to their team. Go ahead and scoop him. Next is Michael Granlund, and he's got 3 points through 4 games because he missed the first few games. He's looking pretty good. I would only add him in really deep leagues, but for now, he's looking pretty hot. Hopefully, he can regain the form that he had a couple of seasons ago. Next is Jesperi Kotkaniemi, Montreal Canadiens, 9% owned, and he's skating alongside arguably the hottest player in the entire league right now, and that's Tyler Toffoli. As long as Toffoli stays absolutely on fire, Kotkaniemi is a guy that you can have on your team. The same thing goes with my next 2 guys, Yoel Armia and Corey Perry. If Armia is healthy, he'll be the one skating alongside Tyler Toffoli, and he looked really good alongside him. When he's not, Corey Perry is going to be skating alongside. Now, if Armia misses a couple more games, Corey Perry's also been getting power play time, which is great if you want someone to string. Last but not least is Alex Iafallo, Los Angeles Kings, only 4% owned, but he has 5 points through 8 games, and he's playing top line and top power play with Anze Kopitar. If you're in a deep league, Alex Iafallo is an absolute steal. Now let's jump into some defense options. First is Matt Grzelcyk, Boston Bruins, 40% owned, and Boston's top power play is about to get a huge boost once David Pastrnak returns. Go ahead and add Matt Grzelcyk to your lineup, otherwise you'll be kicking yourself. Next is Jared Spurgeon, Minnesota Wild, 38% owned, and yeah, he's on a little bit of a cold streak right now, but Jared Spurgeon has been one of the most consistent defensemen over the last few years. You can go ahead and add him to your team. Next is Ty Smith, New Jersey Devils, 32% owned. And like I said in my last video, he is now on New Jersey's top power play, not PK Subban. So if you have Subban, you got to drop him and grab Ty Smith. And if you don't have Subban, still grab Ty Smith because he's looking really, really good this year. And he's finally been put on that top power play. Next is Duncan Keith, Chicago Blackhawks, 29% owned, and he's a good streamer as long as Adam Boqvist remains on the COVID IR. As long as Boqvist is there, Duncan Keith will be getting that top power play time, which is very valuable, especially on a very deadly Chicago power play. Next is Matisse Ekholm, Nashville Predators, 30% owned, and he's also very cold, but the whole Nashville team is cold right now, and he's been one of the most consistent defensemen over the past 5 years. Next is Filip Hronek, Detroit Red Wings, 25% owned, and he's currently skating on Detroit's top power play and Detroit's second power play. This kid is doing everything. Yeah, I know he plays for Detroit, so it's not that enticing, but as long as your pool doesn't count plus minus, Filip Hronek is a pretty good player to add to your team. Next is Alec Martinez, Vegas Golden Knights, 24% owned, and this season he's been an absolute shot blocking machine. So if shot blocking is a category in your pool, he's a really, really good ad. He's got 25 blocks through 7 games. He's also managed to put up 5 points, and he's playing on Vegas' second power play, which is pretty good. Go ahead and add him. Next is my must-add defenseman of the video, and that's Rasmus Andersson, Calgary Flames, 21% owned. And not only is he now manning Calgary's top power play, but he's getting a crap ton of ice time. Go ahead and add Rasmus Andersson before it's too late and someone else takes him. Next on my list is Joel Edmondson, and he's really good in categories leagues that have hits as a category because he really fills up that stat sheet. Next is Noah Dobson, New York Islanders, 13% owned, and he's looking really good this year, manning that Islanders top power play. I absolutely recommend you add him before someone else does. Next is Bowen Byram, Colorado Avalanche, 12% owned, and he hasn't really done a whole lot yet, but he's looked really good. He just hasn't been given that power play time. Devon Toews may be injured for a game or two, so Byram may finally be given that top power play time. He's worth a speculative add for a couple games at least. Next is Adam Boqvist, and if you have IR room, he's a pretty good add because once he comes back, he will be given that quarterback spot on Chicago's top power play, and we all know that it's really deadly right now. Next is Nick Leddy, and he's currently manning the Islanders' second power play, and I would only add him if you're really, really desperate and nobody else on this list is available. Next is Sami Vatanen, New Jersey Devils, 2% owned, and he's still injured, but we don't know where he's going to be put in the lineup once he comes back. Will he be given top power play time? We'll soon find out. Next is Jake Gardiner, Carolina Hurricanes, 1% owned, and he's got 2 points through 4 games. He's looking a little bit better than he did last season, and hopefully he can bounce back because he used to be a pretty good defenseman. Last year he sucked, but who knows? Jumping into some goaltender options, first on the list is Thatcher Demko, Vancouver Canucks, 48% owned, and he's looking pretty good now. He had a rough start, but Vancouver seems to have turned it around a little bit. They've won 3 in a row, and Thatcher Demko played really well in 2 of those 3 games. The other game, he didn't start. The nice thing with him is that Vancouver also plays on a lot of off nights this season. So Thatcher Demko, if he's available on your waiver wire, it's probably a pretty smart add. Next is Pavel Francouz, Colorado Avalanche, 48% owned, and he's currently injured and hasn't played a single game this season. So I would only add him if you're a Grubauer owner and if you have IR room, because once he comes back, he'll take about 40% of the starts away from Grubauer. Now, if you have both of these guys, you're getting 100% of Colorado's starts. That almost seems unfair because that team is just so good. Next is Vitek Vanecek, Washington Capitals, 43% owned, and he's looking really, really good this year. He may have taken over that starter job, although I think he's played just well enough to get himself into a timeshare with Samsonov when Samsonov comes back. Next is Kaapo Kähkönen, Minnesota Wild, 35% owned. And Talbot is injured right now. I don't think he will be for much longer, but as long as he is, Kaapo Kähkönen is a great goalie to own because he's starting every single game. Even when Talbot comes back, Kähkönen might actually see a good amount of starts just because he's been playing so well while Talbot has been gone. Next is Ilya Sorokin, New York Islanders, 33% owned, and I still have confidence in him. He's a really good buy low candidate, even if someone hasn't dropped him in your league. I think he will turn it around and start about half of the Islanders' games like he was projected to at the beginning of the season. Varlamov just played a really bad game against the Washington Capitals, so this is a time where Sorokin can come in and really show what he has to offer. If he looks good, he'll definitely play about 50% of the games for the Islanders. If he starts looking really good, he can get even more than that. Next is Linus Ullmark, Buffalo Sabres, 28% owned, and he seems to have that starter job locked up. Next is Kevin Lankinen, Chicago Blackhawks, 25% owned, and I had picked this guy up as a streamer just because Chicago had a really great, favorable schedule last week, but he's looking really good, and I can't drop him. He's looking great. He's the guy that if you have him, and you have already a bunch of goalies, you can trade him. If not, he's someone that you can probably hang on to, although I would try to sell him high because I'm not sure how long his streak will last. If you're in desperate need of goalies, though, Lankinen is definitely someone you can hang on to. Next is Jonathan Quick, LA King, 22% owned. The Kings aren't looking that bad this year, and Quick's playing pretty well. He's a decent goalie for your fantasy team. Next is Devin Dubnyk, San Jose Sharks, 15% owned, and I would only add him if you're really desperate, but he does seem to be the starter in San Jose right now, and he's playing a lot better than Martin Jones. Next is James Reimer, Carolina Hurricanes, 9% owned, and Carolina hasn't played a whole lot of games, but I do think James Reimer might end up getting about half the starts this year. You can add him as a speculative ad and see what happens. If he doesn't end up getting that many starts, you can always drop him. All right, that's it, guys. Thank you so much for watching till the end. Please leave a like, subscribe, hit that notification button, leave a comment, and let me know how I can improve these videos. Until next time, guys, stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll catch you in the next episode of Fantasy Tipped.